My brother bragged about a 15K bonus while my parents beamed, unaware I've owned a 4-bedroom home for 9 years. When grandma let it slip and they accused me of lying, I silenced the entire party by reading the texts proving I invited them years ago and they simply didn't care enough to answer. The clinking of crystal, the soft murmur of 75 voices, the almost hypnotic tinkle of a distant piano, that was the backdrop. My father's retirement party, 30, 5 years at the firm, culminating in this grand affair, all perfectly orchestrated by my mother, who'd meticulously poured 3 months of her life into every detail. The cake, a majestic 3-tiered masterpiece, was adorned with tiny fondant briefcases and gavels, miniature symbols of a life well lived or at least well perceived. Champagne, of course, flowed like a river, mirroring the celebratory mood that permeated every corner of the country club ballroom. And then there was Jason, my brother. For the better part of 20 minutes, he'd held court, a dazzling performer captivating anyone within earshot with the epic tale of his 15 Zellos a year and bonus. This, mind you, was from his role as a mid-level project manager at some tech company. The way he spun the narrative, you'd think he'd single-handedly snatched the company from the jaws of impending financial doom. My parents, bless their hearts, just beamed. Every word Jason uttered was met with adoring smiles, every boast affirmed with silent nods of pride. I watched, observed, a silent participant in this well-rehearsed family play. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my Chardonnay, the cool liquid a small comfort against a tension I could already feel simmering beneath the surface. I knew, deep down, that something was about to give. It always did when the family dynamic tilted so precariously, and then, like a perfectly aimed hand grenade, dropped into the middle of Jason's carefully constructed monologue, came Grandma Patricia, 79 years old, and as sharp as a surgeon's scalpel. She hadn't missed a beat all evening, and now she cut through the celebratory hum with a simple question. Wet. Let that sink in. A moment of pure, unadulterated shock. Jason's voice mid-sentence just stopped. His mouth hung open, a comical picture of confusion. The small, captive audience around us, aunts, uncles, cousins, went absolutely silent. My father's champagne glass, poised halfway to his lips, froze in mid-air. My mother's perfectly applied smile, the one she'd painstakingly perfected for 3 months of party planning, became a rigid mask. Her eyes, darting between Grandma and me, held a flicker of something close to sheer panic. Grandma, bless her oblivious heart, just continued, her voice radiating cheerful innocence. The property taxes in that neighborhood must be substantial. What are you paying now, sweetie? Around 600 to 800 annually. That's gone up since you bought the place, hasn't it? I met her gaze, a small, knowing smile playing on my lips. It's 7,200 now? I confirmed calmly, my voice steady, betraying none of the internal tremors. But yes, I've kept up with every payment. Never missed one in 9 years. The number 7,200 annually for 9 years seemed to echo in the sudden, cavernous silence. The math wasn't complicated. Everyone in that little circle, and perhaps even some of the wider family, could do the calculation in their heads. The implication hung heavy, thick in the air, a silent accusation. My mother found her voice first, though it came out strained, too high, pitched, almost a squeak. Mom, I think you're confused. Elena doesn't own property. She lives in that apartment downtown. Grandma Patricia's eyebrows shot up, a look of genuine surprise replacing her cheerfulness. Downtown? Margaret, what are you talking about? Elena bought that beautiful Tudor on Westwood Lane 9 years ago. I was there for the closing. I co-signed her loan application, remember? And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the sound of a family imploding. The silence that followed was so profound, I could actually hear the distant piano player in the far corner of the ballroom. Oblivious to the drama unfolding, still tinkling away at some jazz standard, it was a surreal moment, a symphony of unawareness. Jason, ever the quick one to recover, snapped out of his stupor, his voice sharp-laced with disbelief. Yuko signed a loan, Grandma. When was this? April 2016, Grandma replied, already pulling out her phone with the practiced ease of a tech-savvy octogenarian. Let me show you. I have photos from the closing day right here. No! My mother's voice was a frantic whisper as she reached almost instinctively for Grandma's phone. That's not necessary! There's obviously been some miscommunication. There's no miscommunication. I set my wine glass down, a deliberate resonant clink against the table. Grandma's right. I bought a house in April 2016. A 400 square foot Tudor with 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, original leaded glass windows, and a half-acre lot. Purchase price, yen 365,000, down payment 73,000, financed amount and 292,000. The sheer specificity of the numbers, delivered without a tremor, made them utterly undeniable. My father's face, a moment ago glowing with the rosy flush of retirement celebration, had turned to an ashen gray. My mother looked like she might be physically ill. Jason, my dear brother, simply stared at me, his eyes wide, as if I just announced I was, in fact, an alien from another planet. That's impossible, Jason said flatly, the disbelief still thick in his tone. Where would you get 73 Zallard for a down payment? You work at a library? I'm the director of library services for the entire county system. I corrected him, my voice still calm, almost clinical. I make the 94s in a year. Before that, I was assistant director, making 76,000, and before that, head of reference services at 62,000. I've been steadily promoted for the last 12 years, but you wouldn't know that because you've never asked about my career beyond house, the library. Suddenly, Jason's 15,000 bonus seemed significantly less impressive. His face, already flushed deep into an angry crimson. Elena, my father finally spoke, his lawyer voice that deep, authoritative tone, kicking in despite the champagne and celebration. This doesn't make sense. If you bought a house 9 years ago, why wouldn't you tell us? That's a major life milestone. I did tell you, I applied. The truth simple, you weren't listening. That's not fair? My mother began, her voice still wavering. Isn't it? I asked, pulling out my phone. The digital record in moments like these felt like an unassailable witness. April 23rd, 2016. I texted the family group chat. Big news! Just closed on my first house. Can't wait to show you all. Mom, do you remember your response? Silence. A heavy, uncomfortable silence. You wrote, "That's nice, honey." Did you see Jason's post about his new car? You changed the subject in literally the next sentence. Dad didn't respond at all. Jason sent a thumbs up emoji. I held up the phone, the screen glowing, the evidence preserved in digital amber. My mother's face crumpled. A tear, thick with mascara, began to track a path down her cheek. I invited you all to my housewarming party in June 2016. I continued, my voice steady and factual, listing the slights one by one. You said you were busy with Jason's engagement party planning. I sent photos of my renovated kitchen in 2018. Mom replied, "Looks good," and immediately started a new conversation about Jason's wedding. I mentioned needing to replace my water heater last year. Dad suggested I call a plumber and then asked if I was coming to Jason's promotion dinner. Each memory was a small, precise cut. Death by 1,000 oversights. Grandma nodded slowly, understanding finally dawning in her eyes. They really didn't know? Did they, Alina? I thought you were joking when you said they'd never visited. Never once in 9 years, I confirmed, looking directly at my parents. Not for the housewarming, not for any holiday I've hosted, not even when I specifically invited them for Christmas dinner 3 years ago. You hosted Christmas? My mother's voice cracked, raw with a fresh wave of disbelief. But we have Christmas here? You have Christmas here? I clarified the distinction sharp. I stopped coming 5 years ago. I've been hosting my own for the past 4 years. 23 people last year, friends, colleagues, neighbors, people who actually know where I live. The revelation seemed to hit my parents with the force of a physical blow. My father, with a sound like a gasp, set down his champagne flute before he could drop it. 5 years? He whispered, his voice thin and hollow. You haven't been to our Christmas in 5 years? I've said I had other plans every year, I explained, shrugging slightly. You never asked what plans, you never suggested alternative dates. You just said, okay, and moved on. I stopped expecting you to care. It's a fascinating thing, the human mind. Psychologists talk about selective attention and inattentional blindness. Essentially, we're constantly bombarded with sensory information, and our brains have to filter it. Deciding what's important enough to consciously process when we're hyper focused on one thing, like, say, a golden child narrative within a family or an expectation of how someone should be living. Our minds can literally fail to perceive things that are right in front of us, things that contradict that narrative. It's not always malicious. Sometimes it's just the unfortunate byproduct of how our brains are wired to protect our existing beliefs. And in families, these blind spots can calcify over years, becoming incredibly destructive. Jason found his voice again, anger now replacing the shock. So what? You've been playing some kind of game, keeping secrets to prove a point? I haven't kept secrets, Jason, I stated, my gaze unflinching. I've lived my life openly. You all just never paid enough attention to notice there's a difference between keeping secrets and being ignored. Grandma reached out, touching my arm gently. Show them the photos, sweetie. They should see what they've been missing. I hesitated for a moment, then opened my photo gallery. Turning the phone to my mother, she took it, her hands trembling slightly, and began to scroll. 9 years of documentation. The house on closing day. The vibrant garden I'd painstakingly planted. The before and after of the kitchen renovation, then the bathroom remodel, the finished basement. Holiday decorations year after year. Dinner parties, bustling with laughter. Book club meetings, game nights, my vegetable garden in full, glorious bloom. The pergola I'd built with friends, an entire life, meticulously documented, yet completely invisible to my immediate family. My mother's tears started halfway through the gallery. By the end, she was openly sobbing, mascara streaming down her face. Elena, this is beautiful. Why didn't we know about this? Because you never looked, I repeated, the truth stark. I posted these on social media. I mentioned renovations in passing. I talked about my garden, my dinner parties, my life. You just never engaged beyond surface level acknowledgement. My father took the phone from my mother, his hands now visibly shaking as he scrolled back through the images. You did all this yourself? The renovations, the landscaping. With help from friends, I clarified, reclaiming my phone. People you've never met, because you've never asked about my social life. I paused, letting that sink in. I have a whole community of people who actually show up for me. They help me paint. They help me build the pergola. They come over for barbecues and game nights and holiday dinners. They know me, really know me. But we're your family? My mother protested weakly, the words a thin shield against the avalanche of truth. Are you? The question hung in the air like smoke, heavy and acrid, because family usually knows where each other lives. Family celebrates each other's milestones. Family doesn't go 9 years without visiting someone's home. Just then, a colleague of my father's, completely oblivious to the emotional wreckage around us, approached. He clapped my father heartily on the shoulder. Bill, congratulations again! You must be so proud of your kids. Jason here was just telling me about his big bonus. And Elena, library director! That's wonderful. My wife uses the county library constantly. My father managed a strange, stiff smile. Yes, we're very proud. The colleague, satisfied, wandered off. The silence that returned was heavier now, denser, almost suffocating. You might be thinking, surely, after all that, they finally got it, right? But the truth, the real, painful truth, was about to hit them where it truly hurt. 7,200 in property taxes, Jason said quietly, his brow furrowed, his lawyer brain, inherited from dad, finally engaging in real calculation. That's 64,800 over 9 years, plus mortgage payments, maintenance, renovations. Alina, how much have you put into this house, including the down payment, mortgage principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and all those renovations? I calculated quickly. The numbers at my fingertips, approximately 397,000 and over 9 years. The number landed like a bomb. Jason's 15,000 bonus, which he'd flaunted moments ago, suddenly looked like pocket change, embarrassingly insignificant. Where did you get that kind of money? My father asked, his voice now sharp, his lawyer brain fully engaged. Alana, be honest with us. Are you in debt? Did you take out loans you can't afford? I have zero debt except my mortgage, which has a current balance of $186,000, I replied, meeting his gaze steadily. I've paid down $16,000 in principal in 9 years through regular payments and periodic extra payments. My credit score is 798. My emergency fund could cover 18 months of expenses. I max out my 401k every year. I have no credit card debt, no car payment, no personal loans. I paused, letting the weight of my financial prudence settle. I'm more financially stable than Jason has ever been, despite his bragging about bonuses. Jason flushed again, a deeper, more profound shade of red. That's not fair! You don't know my financial situation! Don't I? I raised an eyebrow. You've posted about every purchase on social media. Jason, the new car you're still paying off, the vacation you put on credit cards, the designer watch, the golf club membership. I shrugged. I pay attention to both of you. You just don't pay attention to me. Grandma nodded approvingly, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. Elena's always been the smart one. Lived below her means, saved aggressively, invested wisely. I told her that house was a good investment. It's appreciated to 5,001 or 12,000 or now. She has over 326,000 in equity. The numbers kept coming, each one a fresh revelation, each one hammering home the extent of their ignorance. My mother had stopped crying, now just looking utterly stunned. My father's expression had shifted from shock to something akin to respect, though grief still edged it, a shadow of what might have been. Why? My mother finally asked, her voice a raw whisper. Why didn't you make us pay attention? Why didn't you demand we acknowledge your accomplishments? Because I shouldn't have to beg my own family to care about my life. I picked up my wine glass, found it empty, and set it back down. I tried at first, I really did, but after years of being talked over, interrupted, dismissed, and ignored, I stopped trying. I built a life without your validation because it became clear I wasn't going to get it. This is where we see the profound impact of emotional neglect. Human beings have a fundamental need for validation, especially from their primary caregivers. When that validation is consistently withheld, when accomplishments are ignored or dismissed, the individual learns to seek it elsewhere, or perhaps more powerfully, to build a sense of self-worth independent of external approval. Elena's story isn't just about a house, it's a powerful testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of familial oversight and the emotional cost of that self-sufficiency. It highlights the often invisible burden placed on the neglected child to manage their own emotional needs, while the attention receiving sibling receives all the parental resources. That's not true, my father protested, his voice weak. We love you. We've always been proud of you. Have you, Dad? I challenged, my gaze direct. When's the last time you called me just to talk? Not to ask me to help with something, not to pass along information about a family obligation, but just to see how I'm doing. He opened his mouth, closed it, and looked away, unable to answer. Mom, when's the last time you asked about my work, my hobbies, my friends, my life beyond surface level pleasantries? My mother's tears started again, fresh and bitter. I don't remember. I can tell you exactly, I said, the memory clear and precise. It was February 2014, before I bought the house. You asked how work was going. I told you about a grant I'd written that secured 500 Zalozen for library programming. You said, that's wonderful, and then spent 45 minutes telling me about Jason's new apartment. The specificity of that memory seemed to cut deeper than anger ever could. Jason shifted uncomfortably, finally breaking his silence towards me. Elena, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that I existed beyond being your older sister. I know that's been clear for a long time, I replied, the blunt truth hanging between us. Grandma stood collecting her purse. I think Alina and I are going to leave now. It's been a long evening. Mom, please? My mother reached for Grandma's arm, desperation in her voice. Don't go! We need to talk about this! No, Margaret. Grandma's voice was firm, unwavering. Elena needs space, and you all need to think about what she said. Really think about it. She turned to face my parents, her gaze piercing. I've watched you overlook this brilliant, accomplished, wonderful woman for years. She paused, turning to Jason. And you, Jason, you were too busy accepting their worship to even notice. Grandma! Jason protested, clearly stung. It's true, and you know it? She countered, cutting him off. Elena has accomplished more than you have, makes more money than you do, and has built something real and lasting. But your parents throw you parties for bonuses while they don't even know where she lives. Grandma kissed my cheek, a soft, reassuring gesture. Come on, sweetie, let's go see that garden you've been telling me about. I want to see those roses you grafted. I stood, gathering my clutch. My father reached for my arm, his hand hovering. Elena, please don't leave like this. It's my retirement party. I know, I said, looking him in the eye. Congratulations, Dad. I'm genuinely happy for you, but I need to go home now. To my house, the one I've owned for 9 years, the one you've never seen. Can we come see it? My mother asked desperately, her face a mask of pleading. Please? Tomorrow, next weekend, I considered this, studying their faces, the shock, the grief, the dawning understanding of what they'd truly missed. Maybe, I said, finally, if you actually want to see my life, not just dissuade your guilt, call me, we'll figure it out. Will? My father promised, his voice thick with emotion. Elena, we will do better? I hope so, I replied, the words carrying a profound weight. For your sake more than mine, I've learned to live without your approval. I don't need it anymore. But it would be nice to have a family that actually knew me. Educational anchor 30 cognitive dissonance and the path to acknowledgement. The parents here are experiencing profound cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort of holding contradictory beliefs. They believed they were good, loving, proud parents, yet the undeniable evidence, presented in excruciating detail, challenged that core belief. The immediate reaction is often denial, then anger, before hopefully moving towards acknowledgement. That frantic plea to come see the house isn't just about the physical building, it's a desperate attempt to bridge the psychological gap, to reconcile their self-image with the painful reality Elena laid bare. It's the beginning of processing the moral fallout of their inattention. Grandma and I walked out together, leaving behind the glittering party, the flowing champagne, the echoes of a celebration for my father's accomplishments, while my own had remained unrecognized, unheard, unseen. We drove through the familiar streets to Westwood Lane, to the house that had been my sanctuary, my quiet haven for 9 years. Inside, Grandma walked through every room slowly, her eyes reflecting deep pride. She'd seen it before many times, but she took her time anyway, appreciating the built-in bookshelves I'd had custom made, the updated kitchen that was the heart of my home, the back garden now softly lit by solar lights. Your mother's gonna feel terrible, Grandma said finally, settling onto my couch with a cup of tea, the comfortable domesticity a stark contrast to the ballroom's drama. I know, your father too. And Jason, I know that too, I admitted, looking around at the home I built, the life I created, the person I'd become without their input or approval. Are you going to forgive them? She asked, her gaze gentle but direct. I thought about it. Forgiveness is a complicated thing, especially when it's not just about a single transgression, but years of accumulated oversight. Maybe eventually, I said, a slow exhale. If they actually try, if they actually show up, and if they don't, then I'll keep living this life with people who do show up. With you, Grandma. She smiled, reaching for my hand, her grip warm and firm. That house was the best investment you ever made. Not just financially, though that equity is impressive, but because it gave you space to become who you really are without them defining you. I know, I said, squeezing her hand back. Thank you for helping me get it. Thank you for inviting me into this life, for letting me be part of it. She simply smiled. Your grandfather would be so proud of you. 2 weeks later, my parents came to visit, just them, no Jason. They walked through the house in silence, taking in everything they'd missed. My mother cried again, her tears now softer, more reflective. My father kept shaking his head in disbelief, a recurring refrain on his lips. 9 years? 9 years we could have been part of this? Yes, I said simply. 9 years. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was acknowledgement. It was them finally seeing what had been invisible for so long. Jason came the following week alone. We sat in my backyard under the pergola that my friends had helped me build and talked honestly for the first time in years. I'm sorry, he said finally, his gaze fixed on his hands. I've been a terrible brother. I know, I replied the words without malice, just plain truth. I don't know how to fix it, he admitted. Start by showing up, I suggested. Start by asking questions. Start by caring about the answers. It wasn't, but it was a beginning. 6 months later, my mortgage balance dropped below 170,000. I'd been making extra payments, accelerating my path to ownership, to true financial freedom. My parents came to dinner once a month now. Jason stopped by occasionally. They were trying. It wasn't the family I'd wanted, the one where I never had to fight to be seen, but it was the family I had, finally paying attention, and in my house, my beautiful, hard-won, fully mine house. That was enough. Ownership, I realized, had a name. Mine. And now, finally, everyone knew it. The property taxes came due again, 7,200. Paid in full. Just like always, this isn't just a story about a house, it's a cinematic journey into the insidious nature of familial neglect and the profound triumph of self-worth. It's a stark reminder that attention, genuine interest, and active listening are not just polite gestures, but the very bedrock of authentic relationships. When those foundations erode, when a person is consistently overlooked, they don't simply disappear, they learn to build their own world, their own community, their own unwavering sense of self. The real tragedy here isn't the 9 years of missed house tours, but the 9 years of missed connection, understanding, and shared life that can never truly be recovered. Elena's story teaches us that true love and pride demand presence, not just proclamation. You can declare your love all you want, but if you don't show up, if you don't listen, if you don't truly see the people in your life, then those words ring hollow. It's a lesson in building boundaries, cultivating resilience, and understanding that while family bonds can be powerful, they are not unconditional guarantees of love or respect. If a family's neglect reaches a point where one member must construct an entire, vibrant life completely outside their awareness, is that relationship truly recoverable, Or does the fundamental shift in self reliance and emotional independence mean that the original family dynamic is irrevocably broken, leaving only the possibility of a new, more conditional relationship? Look, we've all seen this dynamic play out, right? Where one person's a 15,000 bonus is treated like a Nobel Prize while someone else's 400,000 investment is treated like background noise. In psychology, we call this relational invisibility. And honestly, it's one of the most quiet, corrosive forces a family can face. It's not that Alina's parents didn't love her, it's that they were so blinded by the golden child narrative they built around Jason that they literally lacked the cognitive space to perceive her success. If you've ever had to build an entire life in the shadows just to keep your peace, or if you finally realized that yourself can't be a hostage to people who refuse to look at you, I want to hear your perspective. Have you ever had a Grandma Patricia moment where the truth finally hit the fan? Or are you still waiting for your family to notice the house you've been building? Drop a comment below and let's talk about how we break these cycles of oversight. I'm reading every single one of your stories because this is how we learn to stop being invisible. And if this story gave you a bit of the validation you've been missing, consider sharing it with someone who might be feeling a little unseen today. Sometimes just knowing you're not the crazy one is the first step toward healing.